Welcome to my channel Official History of Coins. Pull up a chair and get comfortable. Grab a cup of coffee if you want, because we're just going to take a few minutes and talk about something small that might be hiding right under your nose. Let's get started. You know how it is. You empty your pockets at the end of the day, toss some loose change into a jar or leave it on the nightstand, and you barely even look at the coins anymore. Well, today, I want to talk about one specific coin that you've probably handled 100 times without a second thought. A 1970 Washington quarter, the one with Liberty on the front. And chances are, if you find one lying around, it's going to look dirty, scratched up, worn smooth around the edges, the kind of coin you used to buy a gumball or leave as a tip and never feel bad about. But here, where things get interesting, that ugly, beat-up, easy-to-ignore quarter might actually be worth more than you'd ever imagine. Let me set the scene for you. The year is 1970, and the United States Mint is cranking out quarters by the millions for everyday use. The obverse, or front, still features the classic Liberty design, Lady Liberty with her flowing hair, a look that had been around for decades. The reverse shows the iconic eagle. Nothing fancy, just standard pocket change. But here, what makes the 1970 quarter different from the rest? The Denver Mint produced a small number of these quarters that ended up with an unusual detail, a kind of mistake that happened during the striking process. On some of these coins, the date or the lettering appears slightly doubled, or the metal didn't fill the die completely, leaving weak spots that most people never notice. And other times, the planchet, the blank metal disc, was accidentally left over from an older production run, meaning the quarter is technically struck on the wrong kind of metal. These are the kinds of subtle quirks that turn a 15-cent piece of junk into something collectors actually fight over. Now you might be thinking, okay, but my quarter is all scratched up and grimy, so it's probably worthless, right? That's where most people stop looking. And that's exactly why you need to slow down and pay attention. Even a coin that looks like it went through the washing machine twice, got stepped on, and then sat in an ashtray for a decade can still carry real value if it has the right error or variety. For example, a 1970 quarter with a clear doubling on the word Liberty, or on the date, especially the 1970 part, can easily sell for $850 in low to average condition. And if the doubling is strong enough and the coin isn't completely destroyed, you're looking at $1,300 or more. I've seen examples with just a little wear go for $2,100 at online auctions because the error is so distinct and hard to find. So don't judge a coin by its dirt and scratches. That dark, grimy surface might actually be protecting the details underneath. Let me give you a quick way to check what you've got. First, grab a magnifying glass or even just your phone's camera zoomed in and look closely at the front of the 1970 quarter. Focus on the word Liberty arching above Lady Liberty's head. Do you see any extra thickness or ghost-like outlines next to the letters? That's a telltale sign of a doubled die. Then, move down to the date. Look at each number in 1970. Are there any split lines or notches on the edges of the digits? Next, flip the coin over and study the eagle's breast and the lettering in United States of America. Sometimes the doubling shows up there too. And here's another thing. Listen to the coin when you tap it with another piece of metal. If it sounds different, almost higher pitched, that could mean it's struck on a silver planchet left over from earlier quarters, which is extremely rare. A genuine 1970 quarter on a silver planchet, even in worn condition, has been known to fetch $3,400 without any trouble. I want to really emphasize this because most people make the same mistake. They find a coin that looks ugly, dirty, scratched, worn flat in spots, and they assume it's just pocket change. But the numismatic market doesn't work that way. Collectors care about errors and die varieties first and condition second. In fact, many error coins are only found because they were circulated heavily and then spotted by someone who knew what to look for. That gunk in the crevices, leave it there. The scratches. Those probably happened decades ago. The real value is in the unique way that metal was pressed back in 1970 at the Denver Mint. So even a quarter that looks like it was buried in a parking lot can still be worth $4,700 or more if it has a major double die variety and just enough detail left to confirm it. I've seen auction records where a dirty, dark, heavily worn 1970D quarter sold for over $4,000 because the doubling was massive and unmistakable. Now I have to give you a serious warning, and please don't skip over this part. Whatever you do, do not clean that coin. Do not rub it with baking soda, do not dip it in vinegar, do not scrub it with a cloth, and definitely do not use any metal polisher. Cleaning a coin, especially an old, dirty one, instantly destroys its collector value. The patina, the natural discoloration, even the grime, that's all part of the coin's story and authenticity. Once you clean it, you create microscopic scratches that are visible under magnification, and any serious collector will know immediately. That $4,700 coin becomes a 50-cent piece the second you try to shine it up. So if you find a 1970D quarter that looks rough, put it in a small envelope or a cardboard flip, and don't touch it any more than you have to. Just set it aside and get it checked by a local coin shop, or send clear photos to an online grading service. At the end of the day, this is one of those quiet treasures that reminds us why it pays to slow down and look closer. That quarter that's been sitting in your car's cup holder, or the one your kid used for a school project, or the one you almost threw in the Coinstar machine. It might be nothing, but it also might be enough to pay a month's rent or buy something you've been wanting for a long time. So go ahead, dig through your change jar, check the floorboards of your car, and take a few minutes to inspect every 1970D quarter you can find. And remember, real value doesn't always come shiny and new. Sometimes it comes dirty, scratched, worn, and completely overlooked. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one. Next coin, take a close look at this coin. It's a 1972D Washington quarter, and at first glance, your analytical eye probably picks up all the wrong signals. The surface is dull, almost gray-brown in the low spots. The high points of Liberty's hair have rubbed nearly smooth, and there's a scattering of tiny scratches and nicks across the field. The edge shows a bit of discoloration from years spent jingling against keys and sliding across counters. From a purely visual standpoint, this quarter looks like it has lived a hard life, worn, damaged, and utterly unremarkable. And that's exactly why most people would flip it over, see the eagle on the back, shrug, and toss it back into a jar or spend it on a soda. But that snap judgment, however logical, is precisely where they lose the chance to uncover something genuinely surprising. Let's break down why this coin gets overlooked so consistently. First, the 1972D quarter came from the Denver Mint during a year when hundreds of millions of quarters were produced for regular circulation. There's nothing rare about the mintage number itself, so the average person assumes that every example must be common pocket change. Second, the design hasn't changed dramatically from earlier years. The same Liberty obverse, the same eagle reverse, so there's no visual hook to grab attention. Third, the wear and damage you see today act as camouflage. A scratched, dirty, or worn coin signals low value to the untrained eye because we're conditioned to think that old and pretty equals valuable, while old and ugly equals trash. But collectors think differently. They know that certain die varieties and striking errors from 1972D are so subtle that they can only be spotted on coins that have been handled enough to reveal the quirks in the metal. Here's the historical context that flips the script. In 1972, the United States Mint was still using older hub dies to produce quarters, and some of those dies had begun to show tiny cracks, doubling, or misalignments. On the 1972D quarter, one of the most sought-after anomalies is a double die obverse, particularly on the lettering of Liberty and the motto "In God We Trust." This doubling isn't dramatic like a blurry photo. It's a subtle notch or extra thickness along the edges of the letters. Another known variety shows a weak strike on the reverse, where the eagle's breast feathers barely appear. Most people never notice these because they're not looking with magnification. But when you do, a coin that looked like scrap metal transforms into a documented error that collectors actively hunt. And demand has steadily risen over the last decade, because the 1972 D error quarters are much harder to find in the wild than their mintage numbers would suggest. Now let me guide you through exactly what to look for on your own 1972 D quarter, assuming it looks just as beat up as the one I'm holding. First, grab a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe and angle the coin under a desk lamp. Focus on the word liberty along the top edge of the obverse. Do you see any extra serifs or split lines on the L, the I, or the R? That's a classic sign of a doubled die. Next, move to the date. Look at the second digit, the 9. In genuine doubled die examples, the 9 will show a small notch at its upper left curve. Then examine In God We Trust just above Liberty's head. If any of those letters look like they have a shadow or a secondary impression slightly offset, you've likely found a valuable error. Flip the coin. The reverse. The eagle should have clear feather detail on the breast and wings. If the center is mushy or missing detail even though the edges are sharp, that's a weak strike error. Any one of these features, even on a dirty, scratched coin, gives it collector value. And here's the truth that surprises most people. Condition absolutely matters, but you do not need a perfect, shiny quarter to have real money on your hands. A heavily circulated 1972 D with a clear doubled die obverse, even one that looks like it survived a parking lot, can still sell for $920 to a dealer who knows the variety. I've personally seen auction records where a coin with visible scratches and dark tunning went for $1,650 because the doubling was undeniable. Move up to a coin with light wear and good eye appeal, still circulated but not destroyed, and you're looking at $2,750 without much negotiation. A sharp example with only minor bag marks and original luster can command $3,850. And for the best of the best, where the doubling is strong and the coin has never been cleaned, prices have reached $4,900 or more at major numismatic auctions. So that ugly, worn quarter in your change jar, it might be closer to the lower end, but even the lower end is nearly $1,000. I need to stop here and give you a critical warning, because this is where people accidentally destroy their own luck. Do not clean the coin. Not with soap, not with water, not with a soft cloth, and absolutely not with any kind of metal polish or baking soda paste. When you clean a circulated quarter, you remove the natural patina that proves it hasn't been tampered with. More importantly, cleaning creates microscopic abrasions that are visible under magnification, and any knowledgeable collector will spot them immediately. A $4,900 error coin becomes a 50-cent coin the moment you scrub it. So if your 1972 D quarter is dirty or grimy, leave it exactly as is. Put it in a small cardboard flip or a non-PVC plastic sleeve, handle it only by the edges, and take it to a local coin shop or send high-resolution photos to an online grading service like PCGS or NGC. They can authenticate the variety even on a worn coin. What you're holding is a perfect example of why numismatics rewards the observant, not just the lucky. That dull, scratched, beat-up 1972 D quarter has been ignored by dozens of people before you, cashiers, friends, family members, maybe even you yourself. But now you know that under the grime and wear, there might be a doubled die or a striking anomaly that makes it worth serious money. So go check your change, look in old coat pockets and couch cushions, and don't let the coin's appearance fool you. Real value hides in plain sight. Handle it carefully, don't clean it, and if you find that doubling, you'll be glad you took the time to look. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next hunt. Second coin 1978 D quarter, and it looks rough. The surface is discolored, almost brownish in some spots, with a sticky film that could be old tape residue or just decades of grime. Liberty's profile is barely visible under the scratches and dings. Your first instinct is to toss it back in the jar or maybe spend it on a pack of gum. But stop right there. That ugly, forgotten little coin might just be carrying a secret that could change the way you see every piece of old change from now on. There's something deeply emotional about finding a coin that belonged to someone you loved, isn't there? You start wondering how it got there. Maybe your grandfather got it as change at a gas station in 1978, the same year he bought that old truck you remember sitting in. Maybe your mom dropped it in the jar during a move and never thought about it again. That quarter has traveled through time, through inflation, through recessions, through birthdays and funerals, and it ended up in your hands looking worn and worthless. But hear what breaks my heart. Most people would look at that discolored, damaged surface and feel nothing except disappointment. They'd assume it's just pocket change, barely worth 25 cents. And that assumption, that quick emotional dismissal, is exactly why so many valuable coins end up back in circulation or melted down for scrap. You're holding a piece of history, and history doesn't have to be pretty to be precious. Let me tell you why this particular 1978 D quarter is so easy to overlook, and why that's a tragedy. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters that year. The design was the same Washington quarter that had been around since 1932, with Liberty on the front and an eagle on the back. No silver, no dramatic redesign, just a common copper-nickel-clad coin that felt like every other quarter in your pocket. But what most people never knew, and what you're about to learn, is that some 1978 D quarters were struck from dies that had begun to crack or wear out in unusual ways. These tiny die cracks, known as cud errors or die breaks, appear as raised, jagged lines or even lumps of extra metal on the coin's surface. Other examples show a doubled die on the date or on the word Liberty, where the letters look slightly shadowed or thicker than they should be. These errors are subtle, and on a dirty, discolored coin, they're almost invisible to the naked eye. That's why no one ever notices. That's why the coin stays hidden, ignored, and unloved. So how do you actually check if your sad little quarter is one of the lucky ones? You're going to need patience and good light. First, wipe away any loose dust with a soft, dry cloth. Never rub hard and never use any liquid. Then take a magnifying glass or your phone's macro lens and zoom in on the date, 1978. Look closely at the last digit, the 8. On some valuable varieties, the 8 will show a small extra curve or a notch at its top because of a die chip. Next, study the word Liberty above Liberty's head. If you see any doubling, meaning the letters look like they have a ghost image slightly to the right or left, you've found something special. Then flip the coin to the reverse, the eagle. Run your finger gently over the surface and feel for any raised bumps or lumps, especially near the rim. Those are die breaks, and they can range from tiny dots to massive blobs that actually intrude into the design. Even on a coin that's discolored and scratched, a clear die break or doubling can turn that quarter from pocket lint into real money. And here, where the emotion really kicks in, because that ugly, forgotten coin might be worth more than you ever imagined. I'm not talking about a few bucks. A 1978 D quarter with a minor die crack or slight doubling, even in well-circulated condition, can easily bring $780 from a collector who specializes in modern errors. If the doubling is more pronounced and the coin has only moderate wear, you're looking at $1,250 without even negotiating. I've seen examples where a clear cud error, a large die break that creates a raised blob on the rim, sold at auction for $2,050, and the coin was far from perfect. Step up to a coin with strong doubling on both the date and Liberty, plus original surfaces despite some discoloration, and you're in the $3,300 range. And for the absolute best of the best, where the error is dramatic and the coin has somehow survived in decent shape with no cleaning, prices have reached $4,600 or more. That's not a typo. That quarter that looked like garbage could pay for a vacation, a car repair, or a month of rent. But I have to give you the most important warning you'll ever hear about old coins. Do not clean it. I know it's tempting. You see that grime, that sticky residue, that dark discoloration, and you want to make it shiny. You think a clean coin looks more valuable. You are wrong. Cleaning a coin with baking soda, toothpaste, vinegar, or even just a rough cloth destroys the natural patina that proves the coin hasn't been altered. It leaves microscopic scratches that are immediately visible under magnification. And to a collector, a cleaned coin is a damaged coin. That $4,600 error becomes a 25-cent piece the moment you scrub it. So leave the grime alone. Put the quarter in a small envelope or a non-PVC plastic flip. Handle it only by the edges, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send high-resolution photos to a grading service. They can tell you if the error is real, even if the coin looks like it's been through a war. At the end of the day, that 1978 D quarter isn't just a piece of metal. It's a little time capsule that has been waiting for someone to really see it. The discoloration tells the story of where it's been. The scratches are a map of every pocket, every vending machine, every rainy day. And somewhere in those imperfections might be the very thing that makes it valuable. A die crack, a doubling, a mistake that happened for just a few seconds at the Denver Mint nearly 50 years ago. So the next time you find an old, ugly coin in a drawer or an inherited jar, don't dismiss it. Take a breath, grab a magnifying glass and look closer. You might just be holding something extraordinary. Thanks for listening, and take care of those hidden treasures. Next coin, 1980 D quarter, looks like it lost a fight with a parking lot and then spent the last 40 years hiding in the bottom of a dusty junk drawer. You would probably walk right past it without a second glance, but here is the truth that could put some serious cash in your pocket. This ugly duckling of a coin has the potential to be worth thousands of dollars, and you are about to find out exactly why. Let me quickly break down the numbers for you, because I want you to understand what is at stake right from the start. A common, beat-up 1980 D quarter from your pocket change is just worth its face value, but a rare error version or a pristine gem example can be a completely different story. In circulated condition, you are looking at anywhere from 25 cents to a couple of dollars. But when you start talking about high-grade mint state coins or genuine mint errors, we enter a whole new realm. A certified 1980 D quarter in MS67 condition can sell for upwards of $1,050. And if you find a coin with a dramatic error or exceptionally rare tunning, that number can quickly jump to $1,900. Believe it or not, some collectors will pay $2,950 for a truly outstanding specimen, and the most desirable examples have been known to reach $4,100. If you happen to find the perfect combination of a rare error and flawless preservation, you could be holding a coin valued at $5,000 or more. The 1980 D quarter is a classic Washington quarter, produced at the Denver Mint with a massive mintage of over 518 million coins. The obverse features the iconic profile of the nation's first president, George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, while the reverse showcases a proud heraldic eagle with outstretched wings. Because the mintage was so high, the vast majority of these coins are common and hold no significant value, which is exactly why collectors and dealers often overlook them. However, this very fact is what makes the valuable ones so special, because somewhere in that sea of ordinary coins, there are genuine errors and high-quality specimens that have slipped through the cracks, waiting for an observant eye to notice them. So what exactly should you be looking for on your 1980 D quarter? First, you want to examine the mint mark, the small D located on the obverse just to the right of Washington's ponytail. One of the most collectible errors is a filled D mint mark, where a piece of debris or a die chip partially blocks the opening of the letter, making it look solid. Another major point of interest is any sign of double die varieties, particularly on the reverse legend, United States of America, or quarter dollar. True double die errors are highly sought after and can command serious premiums, but be careful because what looks like doubling is often just worthless strike doubling caused by a loose die. You also want to inspect the coin for unusual coloration, especially beautiful rainbow or multicolored toning that develop naturally over decades, which can substantially increase the value to collectors who appreciate aesthetic eye appeal. Now here is the reality check that most people never consider. If you find a sharp, high-grade 1980D quarter with original mint luster and no distracting marks, that coin could be worth $1,050 or more simply because of its pristine condition. The same goes for coins with dramatic mint errors, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, lamination flaws, or the highly desirable filled mint mark specimens. Even a coin that looks heavily worn and damaged from the outside might reveal a valuable feature upon closer inspection. So do not judge a coin solely by its beat-up appearance. The key is to slow down, get a magnifying glass, and look at every detail with a patient and analytical eye, because the difference between a 25-cent coin and a $1,000 treasure often comes down to a single, tiny abnormality that most people would never notice. Before I let you go, I need to give you the most important warning you will ever hear in the coin collecting world. Do not, under any circumstances, clean your 1980D quarter. I know it is tempting to wipe off the dirt and grime to get a better look, but cleaning, whether with a cloth, baking soda, polish, or any liquid, will permanently damage the surface and destroy any collector value. Once a coin is cleaned, it loses its natural patina and accrues microscopic scratches that are visible to any expert, causing the value to plummet to near nothing. Instead, handle your quarter only by the edges, place it gently in a protective flip or non-PVC plastic holder, and if you believe you have found something special, take it to a professional coin dealer or submit high-resolution photos to a third-party grading service for verification. You started this video thinking you were looking at a worthless, beat-up piece of pocket change, but now you know that the humble 1980D quarter is a silent treasure hunter's dream. Whether it is a dramatic mint error, a pristine gem quality survivor, or a naturally toned masterpiece, this coin has the potential to bring you real money when you least expect it. So go dig through those old jars, check every quarter in your wallet, and never underestimate the hidden value in the coins that everyone else throws away. Thanks for watching and happy hunting.